for Kenya's democracy today?
I want to say that that will be something we'd want to consider as a vibrant exercise of our democratic rights. It shows the kind of progress that this country has made, and if you probably think about it, that kind of activism is not seen in this continent and across so many other continents. So that is something that we should be proud about. The other thing is that it also speaks to what the Constitution talks about, public participation. And public participation is an ongoing process, and I think that as the finance bill and its proposals are being discussed, this is just a further exercise of the right of the members of the public to participate in decisions that actually affect their lives. So it is a good thing. And I think the idea is to put it into context and to begin to appreciate that as we go along, one of the things, and this is something that the courts have always spoken about in terms of public participation, that it shouldn't be a cosmetic exercise. So we would want to see at the end of it all, did either the public pressure or the public sentiments or the public views in terms of the proposals that had been made and are contained in the Finance Act, whether those were taken into play, and that the considerations were made, and that the final product that will come out of Parliament will take on board those views and review whatever proposals are there and enrich them with the sentiments that have been given by the public. So for me, I think that it is a good thing. It is something that should be encouraged. But even as we encourage it, it should be done within a certain modicum of etiquette, and you know, there are all these things of members of Parliament, phone numbers being spread all over, and you know, people sending all manner of messages, including love messages, hate messages, and all manner of things. You know, there are certain things, you know, right to privacy, data violations that have happened. But I guess you get all that when you're in such a vibrant country as Kenya.
And Sosion, there's then that glimmer of hope that the Finance Committee did heed the calls and recommendations of Kenyans to remove some punitive taxes, bread, you know, the VAT on bread, the motor vehicle tax and whatnot. But these are just proposals, again, at the end of the day, from the Finance Committee. And so at the end of the day, MPs will still have to vote for these changes, these proposed changes to take effect. And as that happens, we have President William Ruto set to chair that crucial Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group meeting. We have the Azimio team set to meet the MPs as well today to strategize on how to approach the vote itself. Of course, what do you expect there?
Of course, the finance bill now becomes the collective responsibility of political parties. And for Kenya Kwanza, it's very crucial because it is financing the revenue raised through the finance bill will finance the key programs, pillars of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. That is one. Two, it is going to finance the general requirements of the Treasury. Number one, annually, the loan repayment will gobble up 1.3 trillion shillings. And you see the total revenue collection that we have at the moment is around 2.1 trillion. So before we even talk about the budget itself, financing the budget, the loans shall gobble up 1.3 trillion shillings. And a constant consumer education, 650 billion. That is almost 2 trillion, and all the revenue collected in the country shall be over before you think about financing the budget. So it's not an easy thing, and that's why the president is being briefed by the Finance Committee, and the data arising therein shall be shared by the parliamentary group. And you see, within the framework of the budget, we are talking about financing judiciary. Where will the money come from if we don't enhance and broaden the tax collection base? It will come from the taxes and the taxpayers' money. Parliamentarians will have additional funding to the CDF. Where will the money come from? It will come from the tax that is collected. National Government Affirmative Action Fund, GAV, and Women Enterprise Funds, and you look at all the small, medium enterprises will receive more funding in this budget for purposes of vibrancy. Where will the money come from? Agriculture will be receiving additional funding, enhanced subsidized fertilizers, enhanced irrigation programs that are earmarked to be financed. Where will the money come from? It will come from the taxes. So the finance bill itself should not be demonized. And I'm happy, you know, if we are speculating and we are reading what the Finance Committee has dropped and what it intends to do, these are just speculation. But now it is a property of Parliament. What Parliament does with it, whether they vote it out or vote for it, but I'm sure parliamentarians are very conscious. I agree, it's democratic, it's right for the public to picket and pile pressure on members of Parliament on what they think, but the parliamentarians will operate within their conscience as leaders, because to represent the people and to deliver services, it shall require money. Okay. And therefore, to collect money, the public participation process, we are talking about the quality, and I think we need a law on public participation, so that when you talk about public participation, what is it? It's not a referendum. You give your opinion, you give your data. I think we need that kind of a law. The pressure around Parliament, that's normal, it's democratic. But at the end of the day, the wisdom of what to do lies in the parliamentarians. Okay, and I'm glad you say that. Will whip for, or let's pick it up again, from there. The wisdom lies with the parliamentarians. Dr. Hassan, so last week on Thursday, we saw Kenyans adopt an unorthodox means of essentially bullying lawmakers to reject the punitive taxes. And we saw screenshots of the messages that had been sent to lawmakers and the responses that we had from lawmakers. And we had a section of lawmakers saying, you know, I will be voting yes for the finance bill as a thank you to my president, William Ruto. I will be voting yes for the finance bill because I cannot let down my leader, Kimani Ichung'wah. And this is the wisdom of the members of parliament whose shoulders the country's economy rests for the next year. Just judging from the discourse we have seen on social media, the hashtag reject finance bill, and how members of parliament responded to that invasion of privacy, so to speak. What did you read from that?
Wisdom, no wisdom, members of parliament need to, respond to what they're expected to do. Members of parliament use political parties as a vehicle to get to the August House. It is not that the vehicle is the one which took them there. It is the electorate who have taken them there, and therefore, as it is prescribed in their mandate, we hope their wisdom will be towards the electorates who have elected them, not political parties or leaders of their political parties in parliament or the whips. Secondly, when we look at the outcry and lack of respect for members of parliament in the social media from the Kenyans who are significantly crying, is just because they are missing one crucial thing from their representatives: lack of representation. And therefore, if members of parliament, in their own wisdom, do not represent Kenyans the way it is supposed to be, then it's unfortunate. We do fund budgets. Government services must be paid for by the citizens of this country, but it must not also compromise the basic needs of Kenyans who are the taxpayers. For example, let me give you a crucial thing, that what happens just on one taxation, for example, the vehicle. If a vehicle is taxed, We have seen in our previous experience, when fuel, which is consumed by vehicles, are taxed, then the cost is transferred to a common mwananchi. A matatu owner or a bus owner will not going to shoulder the taxation. He will definitely transfer to the common mwananchi, who is the consumer, by raising fares of those particular commodities or services that they are providing. Look at, for example, all vehicles, forget about private vehicles, go to commercial vehicles. What will happen? Because the only exempted vehicles from taxation, before citizens' outcry was heard, of course they must have listened to the citizen. We are not very sure, still certain whether that will go the floor of the House, was that they only exempted a matatu and all government vehicles, both parastatals and counties, which in essence government vehicles have never been taxed. From the time immemorial when we started this nation, government vehicles have been riding without even insurance. I don't know of late whether insurance have been introduced for government vehicles. Mheshimiwa Sosion will go into tell us. But when you look at that, then what happens to a common commodity that is being used by the common mwananchi? Of course, the prices will hike.
Absolutely.
Then if the prices hike, then the philosophy of bottom-up approach will diminish, definitely, because the government must keenly look at exactly what is it that will going to generate resources from the common Kenyans taxpayers that will not going to affect the common basic livelihood of the citizen of the nation.
Right.
These are the things that they need to answer. But if they go do their wisdom based on their political will, then unfortunately that parliamentarians will be hosted out of their parliament. I think they should be removed out of parliament, and Kenyans must react to that. The fact that it is not right for them to do things based on the interest of political parties, but it should be done in the interest of service delivery as well as looking at the interest of a common mwananchi's basic livelihood.
Right, and Theory, you know, as you know, the debate on the finance bill begins today with the tabling of the bill, then Kenyans will be holding that Occupy Parliament protest, a sitting right outside Parliament. And the main aim there is to demand that clauses that contain what they term as punitive tax proposals be amended. And then that's the conversation, that clauses that have punitive proposals be amended. But it's clear that then rejecting the bill in totality is not a very you know, helpful thing for the country at large. Sosion asks then, how will we fund you know, several things like agriculture, MSMEs, the 5 billion shillings for the Hustler Fund and whatnot. But there has been a political rhetoric then around the finance bill, with the Azimio team saying, if it's not amended, we're voting no, and you know, rejecting the bill in totality. What impact is this back and forth discourse likely to have on the final outcome?
You know, there's a bit of political posturing on the Finance Act, because you know, we know this from time immemorial. There are certain things that have been said to be certain, and one of them is taxes, of course, and death. And the other is that government must tax for purposes of offering services to its people. Now, when you come up with the Finance Act or the budget as it is, mostly it contains proposals. And so there are certain proposals that are contained in the Finance Act that people have had serious objections to. What do we expect today is that Parliament then will be looking at those proposals, will be measuring those proposals, one, against the Constitution, two, against national law, to find out, one, do they fit within the Constitution, do they sit and are in conformity with other national laws. That will be the first thing. Then the second, they'll be looking at, for example, the government economic agenda, the bottom-up economic agenda. They'll be looking at the medium term, the long-term plans, financial plans that the government has. They'll be looking at the expenditure programs that the government has, the revenue programs that the government has. And it will be asking itself, do they aid or do they derogate from those policy proposals that the government has set up? And then thirdly, they'll be looking at the impact of those proposals on all those things, and including the lives of Kenyans. And so what do we expect today? We expect that all the views that have come from the different stakeholders would be considered as they are looking at the various clauses that have been put out for purposes of either amending them, repealing them, or completely saying that, you know, these ones cannot work. So in the Finance Act, and having gone through it, there are proposals that are very good. There are proposals that are very good, and those, I hope, would see the light of day. There are others that need to be, you know, adjusted here and there to take into consideration the various views that have been made by various industry players, and I hope that that will happen. And there are some proposals which I think might be a little bit harmful and would not be sitting in conformity with our constitution and the various other government policy documents that are out there, so we hope that given what the courts have done in terms of interpreting how tax laws should be formulated, that Parliament will look at those and then say, you know, as a result of all these issues, we think that these clauses should not be passed.
All right.
Now, that is the ideal situation that you are hoping is going to happen, and as you are saying, that, you know, you have all these Occupy Parliament and everything, but everyone is just trying to, you know, bring about public agitation on these issues so that we can get the right product. But ultimately, what we hope is that Parliament then sitting and exercising the sovereign power that has been donated to them to make decisions on behalf of the people of Kenya would look at all those things in a rather dispassionate manner, consider them. Of course, the Kenya Kwanza would have its position, the Azimio would have its position, but ultimately we hope that all those can condense and into passing a Finance Act that would, one, ensure that the government is able to raise the resources, but also give some sort of predictability to how the tax regime is going to be conducted, because there's so many questions that are there, and if we get a good product out of it, then ultimately Kenya is the winner. Right.
And so, Sosion, then this Occupy Parliament protest is seemingly an accountability campaign to make members of Parliament more accountable. And they're asking for amendments of this clause. But outside of just even amendments of these clauses, Kenyans want more accountability, because reports show that the tax burden on Kenyans is set to increase by 1 trillion shillings by 2027. Just the other day, we had the opposition hold a presser and sort of accused the government of 1 trillion shillings worth of budgeted corruption in the 2024-2025 financial year, in the budget for the 2025 financial year. What's your response to that?
That now should be the conversation. What is the tax collector doing? Is it giving value for money to Kenyans? That's where we should shift the conversation. And looking at our democracy and comparing to many jurisdictions, Kenyan democracy is almost, or Kenya as a country, is almost a land of the free. If you go to Washington, the White House, there are demonstrations daily. People demonstrate and nobody bothers to touch them. But the right to self-expression is guaranteed in our constitution. So those coming to Parliament, it's okay to pile pressure on members of Parliament. And the members of Parliament will apply their thinking more in the finance bill. And as has been stated by the chair here, they will invoke their wisdom and the sovereign power donated to them to do that which is right to the country. It is not doing something for the president. It's not doing something for Kenya Kwanza. It's doing it for the entire country. If we are talking about electrification of the last mile in all constituencies with 50 million, it touches almost all the households. If we are talking about hiring 46,000 teachers at 13 million shillings on PNP for all our schools, it is for the entire country. So this is national service, and putting the process to accountability by asking more questions is okay, it's right for the public. But I want to believe that what the parliamentarians will do, they will give the country a product that is acceptable, a product that will allow the budget to be implemented, and a product that will allow services to be delivered to the people of Kenya. And that people of Kenya can look back and say, yes, we are getting services for our taxes. Now, service to say that, looking at our taxation level as a country, compared to many countries, we are doing at 14% of GDP. Many countries, go to Uganda and the rest, their tax level is almost at 25% of GDP. So gradually, we have to up ours. And this is a strong economy with a huge budget, with huge expenditure. And for us to service the debts and finance the budget, we need revenue collection of 5 trillion shillings. That one is not in doubt.
Uganda's tax to GDP ratio, in the last financial year was just 13.9%.
It cannot be done. It cannot be done all at once. It has to be gradual.
We must speak facts. Uganda's tax to GDP ratio is 25%, as you stated.
Of course, that is.
Those
are figures that will need to debate. Those are figures that needs to be debated. But the fact of the matter is, Kenya has to elevate its tax collection base to be able to finance the budget, service the loan. But the question is, which is what you have raised, is the money being utilized for the good of the people?
All right, let's take a break. Let's take a break on that note. We'll be back with more.
Are we able to put more money in the judiciary?
Absolutely, let's take a break.
More money in
we'll be back as we
are we able to put money in health?
Kenyans will be staging outside Parliament in that Occupy Parliament protest, as the finance bill is set to be tabled for the second reading later this afternoon. We're asking you your thoughts and your expectations as that bill is tabled this afternoon. The hashtag is New Dawn. Do you feel listened to as the Finance Committee succumbs to public pressure and opts to drop some of the punitive taxes that had been proposed in the Finance Bill of 2024? Do you feel that the accountability campaign is heading in the right direction? That and much more coming up after the break. Just stay with us.